Yo, what's up? Ryuji here. Day 4 of Hollywood. Day 3, day 4, I lost count. In any case, Victor and I spent a lot of time learning things today, and I wanted to talk about, the way we went about that, and maybe more importantly, our philosophy behind that. One thing we want to try is we really want to try to do different things and do things differently. What we're going to do is we're going to try different ways of learning and implementing knowledge, acquiring knowledge. Because, I feel like a lot of times we just get stuck in this one way of doing things. We don't really question the way that we do a lot of things. And I was inspired to think about this because a friend of mine that I met back in Paris, he was an old friend of mine. It's really funny because we haven't seen each other in years, but for some reason, our paths kind of crossed again and we're kind of into the same shit now, and that's kind of cool. But in any case, he told me about how he sleeps now. And the way he sleeps is that he sleeps 5-6 hours at night, and then during the day when he gets tired, he takes a couple naps of 20 minutes. And he says that way he sleeps less and he feels really, he has a lot of energy. He has a lot more energy than when he used to sleep 8 hours at night. Now, I'm not saying whether this is right or wrong, and I'm still testing this out myself. But, the point I'm trying to make is that he told me, I went my whole life sleeping a certain way, and I never really questioned that. I never really questioned the way that I sleep and whether that's the most optimal way to rest, because that's the function of sleep. You can also enjoy sleeping, that's totally fine. But the function is to rest your body and come back, alive, with energy so you can go about your day. And he said, my whole life I slept a certain way and I never really questioned it. And that made him think, what else am I not questioning? Now, I think there are a lot of things that we don't question. For example, the way that we eat, the way that we sleep maybe, the way that we are educated, the way that we go about our lives in general. A lot of things I feel like we don't question. But specifically what I want to talk about today is learning, because I feel like learning is something so important, yet it's not necessarily something that we talk about a lot or spend a lot of time, thinking about, even in academic settings like schools. How often do you talk about, how to learn the material? You talk about learning the material, actually acquiring the knowledge and passing the tests and stuff. But as for a clear methodology of how to actually learn effectively, that's not something that was very, addressed in my experience. And so for the longest time, I try to learn things, but I didn't really pay attention to this process of learning. And that's something I'm really starting to pay attention to and are really trying to get down. What is the best way of learning? Now, what comes with that is the open-mindedness necessary to try different things. Because it's good to say okay, I'm gonna figure out what's the best way of learning. But you also have to be okay, if I'm gonna figure out the best way of learning, I'm also gonna try a lot of new ways of learning. I'm gonna put myself in new situations. I'm gonna try new methods. I'm gonna go into uncharted territory. And that's what me and Victor did this morning. We were trying this completely new thing with learning. And essentially we were trying to take advantage of the fact that we were both here together. And so what we did is we were okay, we're gonna consume the same piece of content together. We're gonna read the same book. We're gonna watch the same video at the same time. And then after that, we're both gonna take our individual notes. Well, the whole thing is this. We take our notes and then we watch the video again to see what we might have missed. We take notes again. The reason we did that is because, I was taking a course on speed reading once. I think it was called Breakthrough Rapid Reading. But one of the things they talked about was how you want to retain information better. You don't just want to read a book, you actually want to remember the information in it. And how do you do that? You get good at recalling the information. You get good at you read the thing and then you arrange the information in your mind. You don't just go through the words, but you actually read a passage and then you think about it. And the way they get you to do that is they have an exercise where you read something, you close the book, and then you write notes on what you remember. And then you open the book, you go through it again, and then you close it, you complete your notes. So that's what we did with videos. But then after that, and here's the more critical part, I guess, because we were both together, we decided to talk about it. We decided to sit down together and talk about, what we just learned. And not only that, in the process, we tried different things like linking it to our previous experiences. How does this new knowledge relate to our lives? How do we have experiences in the past already that back up this knowledge? And also critical, we asked questions. In our notes, we made sure to write questions about whatever material we consumed. It was Tony Robbins that, was not him that said, but I got this from him recently. He said, the way to focus your mind is to ask questions. When you ask questions, your mind will focus on those questions, and your mind will be working even subconsciously to answer those questions, and it will be looking for answers. So we made sure to like ask questions. Also, that way we're more critical about the thing, and we don't get in this thing where we're like, oh, we know everything. You know, you never want to think that you know everything, but you want to be like, okay, what more do I want to know? What else is there that I don't know here? That's what we're searching for. Like, what do we not know that we could learn? So we're asking questions, and you know, and so basically we shared our notes, you know, talked to each other about our thoughts, talked about how we both have different experiences that backed up this knowledge. You know, because a mentor of mine, he says, okay, so stories are great because stories put facts into an emotional context. Is that right? Yes, that's right. Sorry. You know, because when you learn something, if you have a story about it, it's so much easier to remember that. You know, for example, I can't think of it. Like, for example, the sleep thing, you know, that I was talking about at the beginning of this video. Well, it would be very easy for me to read an article about that, a scientific article about that on the internet, but I probably wouldn't remember it. But the reason I remember it is because my friend told me his whole story about how he found out about it, and then how he went and tried it, and how he changed his life, and then how like he shared it with this person and did this and that and tried different things. Like, you know, he told me the story and the outcome, and so I remembered all the facts, right? So in a similar way, me and Victor, we took all this new knowledge and we linked it to different stories, and we told ourselves the stories so that it reinforces the knowledge in our minds. And then from there, like I said, we also asked questions about it. And you know, and sometimes, and what we did too is like try to hypothesize answers, but never thinking that we were right. Like we weren't like, oh, this is the answer. We were like, oh, maybe this is the answer, maybe this is the answer, but you know, maybe not, and we don't really know. And of course, all this speculation based on different things, different experiences, different other pieces of knowledge. We tried to link it to different, you know, different videos we saw, different books we read, different articles we've seen. But basically, you know, everything based, we don't want to make up opinions out of our own minds. You know, we want it to be based on our experience or other people's experiences. But, you know, so we did all that. And the thing is this, like that was really time consuming, and but it was really cool because we were really able to try something new. And for me, I thought it was a really cool experience. I really enjoyed it, and I really feel like I learned so much. And it was crazy because in a couple hours we did that. In a couple hours, it was on a 20-minute video. You know, we watched the 20-minute video twice, we took notes on it twice, and then we discussed it. The whole thing maybe took like a couple hours, you know, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, just to like, you know, learn the material in a 20-minute video that we could have technically just watched the 20-minute video and just moved on with our days. But the thing is this, I feel like doing all that, we learned so much. We learned so deeply. That knowledge was really rooted into us. Like we really, you know, I feel like I'm going to remember this for a long time. And that's what's really important with learning, because it's not about learning more things, it's about learning smart and learning deeply. You know, if you know a lot of things on the surface level, well, it's cool, it's awesome. But, you know, at the end of the day, where's that going to get you? And of course, this is dependent on where you want to go, but if you look at people who have been successful in their respective fields, typically they have very deep knowledge about their very specific area of knowledge. You know, in other things they might be ignorant in, like incompetent, and you know, that's life. You don't have time to learn everything, so you have to pick and choose in a certain sense. But yeah, that's kind of all I want to talk about, and how, you know, it's not necessarily about, I'm not necessarily saying you should do this. That's not what I'm saying. You know, maybe you should try it, and I would definitely recommend it. But here's the thing, tomorrow we're probably going to wake up, we're definitely going to wake up and try something new. We're going to tweak it. You know, I don't know how exactly. Maybe we'll try a different sequence. Maybe we'll try a different way of talking about it, a different way of taking notes on whatever we consume. You know, whatever it is, we're just going to keep trying different things, because for us right now, what we're trying to take advantage of is the idea that the fact that we're both together. We have each other as resources, so why not use that to our advantage? And so we're going to try a lot of different things, a lot of different ways of learning things, a lot of different ways of, you know, going about our project and stuff, to find a better way to learn so we can become better learners, learn more things, implement knowledge faster, and grow faster. Anyways, that's all I want to talk about. You know, thank you for checking this out today. I really, really appreciate it. I'm out here, nice little sunset behind me. Any case, peace, take care. I'll see you next time.